Hi everyone, Sathany named Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Lonnie Holley record, Oh Me, Oh My. This is a brand new LP from singer, songwriter, painter, sculptor Lonnie Holley. This is his second album for the JAGJAGUWAR label, and though Holley, currently at age 72, has been an artist for decades now, he came into music in a professional capacity much later in life. Take that, everyone whining on the internet. Oh, I'm 25 now. My potential for a music career is over. Plus, it's been over 10 years since Lonnie's breakout into music with Just Before Music in 2012. And now his latest project here is currently his most talked about and well received to date. And it's not hard to see why. We have consistently impressive features on this thing from the likes of Moor Mother, Bon Iver, Sharon Van Etten, as well as REM's Michael Stipe. We also have pristine, vivid, and intergalactic production from Jackknife Lee, which really brings the otherworldly qualities of the music here to life. Then there's Lonnie Holley himself, who is a magnetic vocalist and performer. There's this amazing presence and timbre to his voice, this mesmerizing vibrato as well when he locks into it. His voice also has the smokiness and the texture of like an old trumpet. There's a lot of volume, a lot of sustain, a great command of pitch too, but simultaneously there's something really weary and flawed about a lot of the singing on this record, which brings a level of emotional rawness to the table. How expressive of a singer Lonnie is will most likely hit you immediately, and there's nowhere that's better illustrated than in the content of the actual music and how he performs it, how he acts it out. Take the title track, for example, which is far from the catchiest and most visceral song on the record, but it's still a prime example of this project's central thesis. We have Michael Stipe singing somewhat eerily in the background of this thing, as elegant piano chords and ambient tones kind of build the track's foundation. Meanwhile, Holley on the track sings through a series of realizations about his own emotional traumas, processing his past, understanding himself, and how a lot of what he's dealing with, at least personally, comes down to his family life and his childhood. The track's an emotionally powerful meditation that fuses together elements of ambient music, spoken word, and spirituals. There's a piece later on the record that brings together similar genre elements, Kindness Will Follow Your Tears, which comes to an even grander finish and also includes some great vocal harmony layers from Bon Iver. And lyrically, I read this track to be very much about having an emotional breakthrough of sorts. A profound moment of clarity with Lonnie getting in touch with his feelings and accepting them, addressing this long neglected inner child in a way, which I think he does later on the record in an even more overt way on I Can't Hush, which is a track that's very much about bottling up various traumas and terrible things from the past, and having seen his loved ones and relatives have to do that at various points, sort of embodying that same behavior himself, but simultaneously portraying himself as a baby that can't hush, that has to say it out loud, that has to acknowledge it, that is going to break this cycle in a way. The closing track, Future Children, I think is pretty essential to this narrative as well. Not my favorite cut on the record, as it seems like more of an interlude or kind of like a fleeting afterthought. We have some repeating synth sequences in the background and Lonnie vocally on top of that with some heavy vocal effects to make him sound like a robot as he goes on about future children dealing with a power failure, no power, signal lost, no winners in the billion-dollar lottery, which is a curious note to end on, but I suppose one that makes sense given that the opening track on this thing pretty much poses the idea that life and the world that we live in is like a series of tests that we have to endure and go through. So I think that's kind of a quick picture of the record's overall messaging, at least on a lot of the ambient leaning cuts in the track list, which is far from the sum total of this record's sounds and stories. Cause there is the song Earth Will Be There, which brings a panoramic display of meditative horns and percussion, decorated with all these surreal effects and jazz flourishes. The track sounds like we're going on an intergalactic journey, one meant to make you feel microscopic in relation to the very gargantuan world we live in. But we also take a moment in the midst of the track to zero in on generational burdens brought upon by institutions like slavery, which comes by way of this amazing Moor Mother feature on the song. Deeper into the track from Lonnie, we hear these themes of needing protection, or even a guardian that isn't there, being lost in a way as well, which is a recurring theme through the record. Like on If We Get Lost, They Will Find Us, which features an amazing vocal performance from Mali singer Rokia Kone. From here, I want to mention the track Mount MEIGS, which is handily the most unsettling moment on this entire record. Holley reflects on time he spent in a juvenile facility when he was a kid. This would have been back in the 60s, and the whole thing is set to these noisy guitars and blood-curdling strings. The finish of the track is absolutely harrowing, as Lonnie describes having the curiosity beaten out of him, damned out of him. It's also pretty clear that this track sits at the center of a lot of the trauma that relates to all of the childhood trauma that is being kind of nodded toward at various points on the album. Better Get That Crop In Soon has one of the most layered and satisfying beats on the entire LP. There's this intense sense of unease coming off of some of the horn hits and creepy droning tones in the background too. And None of Us Have But a Little While is one of the more linear cuts on the entire record in terms of its large-scale instrumental build. It's so immersive, the fluttering woodwinds, the touching strings, droning horns, and reverb-drenched pianos. You can really swim in this thing. A lot of the lyrics on this track come down to our short time here on Earth as individuals, but maybe also just as people generally. Like our existence is essentially a blink of the eye, but simultaneously, I think the takeaway from this track is also to just realize how precious life is, which is a message that's also conveyed on I Am Part of the Wonder. Although I will say this is not one of my favorite cuts on the record, because I think much of the drama that is brought to the table by a lot of these tracks is lost in the faster, funkier beat and electronics in the instrumental. And overall, I do have to say this was kind of a mind-blowing and emotionally impactful project for me. Lonnie, Jackknife, and all collaborators involved really killed it. The lyrics, sentiments, emotions, themes, and concepts on this record are wonderful and focused, consistent. The production, arrangements, layering, and performances are great too. And all the features on this thing add to this record in their own way as well. There were a few moments that underwhelmed me a bit, and I think as an overall project, maybe it could have been longer. But outside of that, I don't really have many issues with Oh Me Oh My. I think it's a beautiful and a profound little album. I'm feeling a light to decent 9 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Lonnie Holley, forever.